G'day guys, and welcome to today's video, which is all about dynamic forward arching for your movement practice and for strong, resilient, flexible spines. Just before we head on down to the oval, did you know that excessive consumption of these fresh breath mints can have a laxative effect? Guess how I discovered that? You want to hear the full story, don't you? Well, I arrived early to pick the kids up from school. I've got two beautiful kids and I was early. And so I'm waiting there, listening to a podcast, just eating breath mints, not paying attention to how many breath mints I ate. Turns out I ate pretty much the whole container, and then it hit me. Code red, I needed to go. Couldn't find any toilets outside of the school, so I had to run inside of their school just as the bell went, through the crowd of kids and teachers, and burst into the toilet because I just nearly had an accident that day. My kids will never let me live that one down. Let's do some forward dynamic arching. When we look at the forward dynamic arching pattern, we need a nice extended spine, open shoulders, and open hip flexors. So warming up these parts of the body is a great idea. I love this kneeling lunge, sending the weight forward, interlacing the fingers, looking to the sky. I'm bending through the mid-spine behind my shoulder blades, drawing my shoulders back, and I'm also opening up through this hip flexor here. So I'll generally warm up each side for 30 seconds here, and then we'll move on to a different exercise. Next, we have a standing arch variation. So for this one, I'm leading with the head, leaning back, arching down. Maybe I start to get up onto my toes, and I'm standing back up. Go again, see if we can get a little deeper. Ooh. 5 of these, getting deeper and deeper, just to warm up the hips and the spine. Now to bring some loading into the wrists and shoulders with our tabletop shape, I'll step back into this half bridge and just practice reaching back, extending through the shoulder, lifting the hips high. Notice they're not sinking. Use that other hand to reach behind you. I'll do this a few times each side. And then from there, we'll start to move into lifting one leg and trying to keep the glute engaged on the supporting arm. See if you can really lift high here. And coming down, relaxing. Do both sides, and we're ready to begin the dynamic stuff. The first of our dynamics is a garden variety cartwheel. Doesn't have to be pretty. We're doing 3 each way. And then we'll move on to some hip switches. The good thing about forward arching is we can build it from the ground up. By that, I mean, starting with these hip switches from our low squat, we reach behind, I'll turn the outside hand in, and we want to flip the hips, finishing back in my low squat, back the other way. And this just gets you into the habit of switching the hips. Now it's time to add a little bit more momentum to our hip switches from standing. We can lower down into squat, push out, and come back to standing. Once again, squat down, come back to standing. Notice I'm still collapsing the hips for my landing, but we're starting to get a little bit more extension through the spine and more push with the shoulders. Also reaching with that spare arm to help me travel. Let's just take a look at one of the exit opportunities using our sissy squat and our arch. If you can reach down, push up, keep the hips extended. This mimics one possible exit when we add that to your dynamic forward arch. We start to get more into that standing exit range. You can start to see how we build. So now you can see we get our standing dynamic forward arch, maybe finishing in that sissy squat standing shape. Maybe we can keep the momentum going forwards. Out this way. And maybe you've started to notice
we're jumping off 2 feet at once and we're landing on 2 feet at once. But what happens if we want to change this up to one-footed entries and exits? We start to get a forward cartwheel, like so. Notice the hips are still turning forward, but I'm taking off on 1 foot, and I'm also landing on 1 foot. If you've got enough arch and power, you can step out, like so. Now, there's 2 ways to get into this. They call it aldo frente in Portuguese because it's used in capoeira. So there's 2 ways that we can get into this. Let's take a look at those. When you're landing the aldo frente, or the forward cartwheel, you need to turn that front foot slightly 45 degrees off the center line and push out through that hip, and that gives you the extension you need to land. Now, the other leg needs to travel straight to create like a cantilever to pull you over. We could build you up from the ground to begin with, so we'll get down low again and we'll go around the side, like so. Front on view. Now you can see this is like a mini forward cartwheel. Now we can start to arch more through the spine, let the head trail last. And you get this more of an archy effect. And you start to see things coming together. Let's have a look at it from the top down position, coming from high to low. So when we look at this one from high to low, what I like to do is reach a fair way out in front of me, remembering to turn that outside hand inwards to create the shoulder range we need. And from here, I'm going to bend my back leg. It's going to tuck up, and the other leg's going to try and stay straight. And you can do a little back step out of it at first. You've just got to commit to that hip twist, like so. And you'll see how it's different to a regular cartwheel because I'm starting to come forwards. I also like to lift the back hand up, step out, and give the ground a big push on the way through. Also turning that landing foot 45 degrees for your landing. I should also just say that this forward cartwheel, one-footed landing, took me a long time to figure out. So if you're struggling with it at first, just be patient. It takes a little while of tinkering, getting the timing right. There's a lot going on, so be kind to yourself. Another option we can play with is to add a cheat step before we go into our forward arching cartwheel. So going back to the 2-footed landing, what we can do is add a cheat step 90 degrees, then we can head on over into our hip switch with a bit more speed. We can land in squat, or if we start to push the floor away, we can land in our sissy squat. That wasn't the best one. Hey! More hip extension. Nice! Add a twist off the end. And you can see how we just start to build on these skills into dynamic forward arching. How I typically structure a session is after you've done some of those drills in isolation to figure out the shape, then you can come out and play for 60 to 90 seconds with a timer on, doing some dynamic movement, adding some steps in. So we might just start to warm up. Moving around into the different shapes. Okay, that's it from me. Today, I hope you got something out of it. If you did, drop me a comment, let me know where you're from, what you're working on. Hit the like button, subscribe. I'm done. See you in the next video. Phew.